What's up, everyone? Alex here. This is For the Love of Video Games, episode 274. With me, as always, with dogs, is the Dracula to my Alucard, the Odie to my Garfield, Daniel Santos. How's it going, man?
Woo! Yeah!
I love that your dog is now part of the intro.
I mean, there's nothing I can do about her.
But how you been doing, man?
I've been doing all right. I mean, I gotta say though, there's been a lot of drama going on. Oh boy.
Oh, YouTube stuff?
Yes.
Oh man, yeah.
That's been. I don't know if you want to get into it.
No, let's not.
We don't have to.
I will say this: one of the females in said party, I actually went to college with her, like in the same major, I think.
Oh,
yeah, I did. We've crossed paths somehow, somewhere, like post, college, and I recognize them. Like, wait a second, we went to the same college. What the hell? But anyways, we're not going to be talking about that. We have a checklist of things to talk about. You're going to be talking about some anime, Sama, Love is War. I don't have it actually titled because you said it to me verbally, and I'm like,
Kaguya-sama, Love is War.
Okay, Kaguya-sama, Love is War. And Celeste, you're going to be talking about that, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be talking about Mortal Kombat 11 because guess what? I finished the game! Woo! I finished story mode. It's pretty amazing. And of course, the piece de resistance for this episode, my friends, is we're going to be talking about Sony's May State of Play. That's huge. If you guys actually haven't seen it yet, if you go to youtube.com/mybacklogbattle, I posted a video of me and Daniel watching that thing. You're not seeing our faces, but you can hear our voices and just reacting to every single announcement in that video and stuff. And, we'll give our more detailed reactions and comments, at the end of the show, so you guys can have some time to watch and enjoy the rest of the show. But first of all, so talk to me about this anime that you watched, Daniel.
So, Kaguya-sama, Love is War. The best way I can describe it is it's basically two tsunderes that like each other, but don't want to admit it, and go to Death Note levels of mind games in order to try and convince the other one to confess first.
Oh gosh.
It's hilarious.
Okay.
It's one of the funniest anime I've seen in a while. Like, I consistently laughed pretty much every single episode.
Okay. All right.
There's only 12 episodes. It's pretty short. I'm hoping they release a season 2 because I really liked it, and the manga keeps going. So if they release a season 2, that'd be pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. But
if not, it's still a really good show that's worth checking out. I'd say the characters are really fun and likable. What really makes the show work is that you have the two characters, Kaguya, and I forget the other guy's name, but basically the boy and the girl, and they're really intellectual, and they're just like but at the same time, like they kind of give off this impression that they're like so mature and they're above everything, but they're actually just they're teenagers, so they're just like really insecure, and they overthink everything. But what balances the show, because if it was just the two of them, it wouldn't work, is their friend Chica. She is like the wild card, and she introduces this element of chaos to the show because she's not crazy, but she's like, very fun and outgoing and kind of eccentric.
Mm-hmm.
And she's always like playing games with them. Like there was one game where the characters had to write a word down and pass it to someone else, and guessing what word that person would say.
Okay.
And the main character was like, he devised this plan. He's like, okay, I'm going to make it so that she would never say this word. And then she starts rapping, and then he's like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm going to change how I talk so that I won't lose. And he's like, no, this is ruining my plans.
Okay. All right. I mean, I can tell, you really enjoy the anime just like from how you're describing it and stuff, but I couldn't help but actually laugh after reading Dumbhawk's comment where it says, me, an intellectual, the anime. It sounds like a fairly accurate representation of what you're describing, oddly enough.
Kind of. What streaming services is it on? It's on Crunchyroll.
Okay.
I don't know if it's on any other ones. That's where I saw it on.
Right.
It's currently only subtitled. I don't think it's dubbed yet.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying that, but in the wild west world of video games, I guess you've been playing a lot of Celeste though lately, right?
Yeah. So after I beat Phantasy Star, which was really great, really enjoyed it. I was like, man, I want to play something different. I want to like just cleanse my palate, so to speak, and just jump into a different type of game. So I started playing Celeste, and I'm halfway through it. I'm for those who have played the game, I'm on chapter 4, which is basically the windy area. So you have to keep the wind in consideration when you're making certain jumps, and there are also certain platforms that you can, when you get on them, they will start moving on their own, and you can, depending on the block and also depending on like which side of the block that you're on, you can also influence its trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
So there was one part in particular that took me a little bit to figure out, but like there was an opening at the top of this like vertical area, and I was like, I just couldn't get up there because it was too high, and it was like filled with spikes, and I'm like, what the hell does this game want me to do? And then I realized that there's one of those blocks at the very bottom, and I thought like all you were supposed to do is jump on top of it, and then it would take you up, and then it would like destroy itself, and that's all you could do with it, until I realized that on the side of it was a button. So I had to actually, instead of get on top of it, I had to grab it on the side, and then that would allow me to influence where it would move, thus allowing me to eventually get to the top.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, in general, like Celeste has had like these awesome brain teasers and stuff like that. But one of the things that you and I talked about off camera and stuff, or off recording, is how sometimes like these games have a penchant to really stop your gameplay, right? Like your pace. And, it's interesting to think about like Celeste having these kind of puzzly elements as well, because one of the things that I really loved about Celeste is actually tackling a lot of the jumping puzzles in the game. And whenever it tries to throw like a puzzle at me, it's actually, I want to say it's probably the biggest contributor to me actually stopping the game completely, and that's not to say that I don't appreciate puzzles in my games. It's just that the way that Celeste is presented is in such a way that it's like, hey, it's like Super Meat Boy but like just as good and stuff, and then you're faced with these situations. You're like, I don't know if I signed up for this. I wasn't ready intellectually and mentally to kind of tackle these puzzles. And I think that's probably like why I stopped the last time, because I was in that section of the world that you're playing right now where there's a lot of wind, and I do appreciate those jumping puzzles, but then like I encountered something that really stopped me from advancing, which I was like, man, that's kind of a pity.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't think it's quite that bad in Celeste, but I will agree that there have been like a few of those pace breaker moments that suck. The game is absolutely at its best when you're just doing the platforming challenges.
Yes.
The game is so much fun when you're just like, when the game is introducing like new ideas, and it's like throwing cool new concepts at you, and you have to like think on the fly, and it's like, okay, what does this do? Oh, this makes my character jump higher or whatever. Or, oh, it gives me an extra dash. And then you have to like figure out like, okay, now that I have this new thing in the environment, I have to figure out how to get past this new obstacle, and it's a lot of fun when it's just like that pure platforming challenge.
Mhm.
And when it's not doing that, I'm not going to say the game turns bad or anything, but like it's noticeably not as enjoyable.
Right. Kiflin says the pace breaker moments in Celeste are to teach you a skill that you really need for upcoming events. And I feel like you could do that without breaking the pacing. You know, there are ways to introduce those kinds of styles of gameplay without literally just grinding it to a halt. You know, and maybe we're, you know, I'm not as capable of a game designer as these guys. Maybe they just came up to that conclusion, right? But, you know, I really think that I firmly believe that most games, you know, can solve a problem without actually hurting their pacing. Because it stops becoming a learning experience, especially in this case, if you're stuck there for like 2-3 hours. Not to say that that's actually happened to me, but if it's more than the length of time that you are in any of the previous areas, I feel like it feels longer than what it is, right? You know what I'm talking about, Daniel? Like,
sure.
It's like, what is it? Like, I was reading a book today, and they were talking about how, you know, like, elevator makers are able to make like some of the fastest elevators in the world, but even when an elevator is going up at 15 seconds, like really super fast speed, it's still too long. You know, and so like even in this situation where you're trying to teach people in Celeste like a new mechanic, you know, unnecessarily like lingering there for too long is gonna stop people from playing the game regardless of your intention, right? I mean, that's how I think, at least.
But in Celeste's defense, like for me at least, I haven't really encountered too many pace breakers. Like this is the only significant one I can think of that really like stopped me in my tracks. Like for the most part, the game has been pretty much smooth sailing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I want to say like maybe less than even a fraction of a percent, like where I literally face these kinds of obstacles, but otherwise it's like it has been that joyous platforming, you know, like kind of very accurate platforming, very meticulous button pressing and stuff that, you know, we've come to enjoy like in a lot of platform games of this genre, you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think it's a great game. The visuals are fantastic. The music is fantastic. I like the main character a lot. She's very likable, very cute, and I'm interested to see like what her deal is. If I had to take a guess, like I think the game is about her depression, and like the mountain is like kind of symbolic of her getting over her depression.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of what I've gathered. I could be totally off, but you know, I'm going to keep playing and see what's up.
Yeah, no spoilers, chat. If you like the design of the character, I highly recommend checking out Hilda on Netflix. It's more childlike and more I don't want to say entertaining, but like it's more approachable and kind of actually a really good feel good cartoon on Netflix. And I don't recommend a lot of Netflix shows, but Hilda's actually a really good show, especially if you like the aesthetic of Celeste. So
cool.
Yeah. Anyways, a lot of people were saying, you know, Celeste is great. Celeste is a nice name. It's really cool. But you know what's cool is basically like blasting a shotgun through the spinal column of somebody's, you know, body and stuff, and then maybe throwing a grenade and blowing up their face, you know, and shoving a grenade through their spinal cavity. You know what I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about Mortal Kombat 11, Daniel.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That sounded filthy.
Yeah. Also, well, it's not as filthy as the wishbone. Can you imagine what's actually happening in a fatality called a wishbone, Daniel?
I can only imagine. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say it anyway. So in Mortal Kombat 9, Noob Saibot, you know, is my favorite character in Mortal Kombat 9, partly Melina. Yep, Noob, which, in case people don't know, Noob Saibot is Boone and Tobias spelled backwards. Those are the two people responsible for the early designs of Mortal Kombat. So that's why we have Noob Saibot, okay? So New basically splits into two different shadow people. One is himself, the other one's a shadow person. And what Wishbone does is he splits into two people, and they both position themselves on each side of the other person. Each of them pull one leg and one arm, and they pull the person like a wishbone.
Ooh.
Yeah. Pretty cool, right? Anyways, there's some really crazy stuff in Mortal Kombat 11, but some things are kind of getting tame, but they're still filled with a lot of, like comedy and fun stuff. I finished the story mode recently, which is why we're talking about Mortal Kombat 11, and it's just as ridiculous as ever. Because I remember about a few weeks ago, Daniel, you were like, you care about Mortal Kombat's story? And I'm like, well, yes, because Mortal Kombat's story is ridiculous, man.
Wait, I said that?
Yes.
I heard MK9's story was pretty good.
I mean, the Mortal Kombat stories have been good since Mortal Kombat versus DC, actually, Daniel. I mean, good is relative, though.
Okay, sure. Let's not get into that.
Yeah. I mean, we're not talking like an Oscar award-winning script by, pick a director here who has won a lot of Academy Awards kind of thing. You were not comparing what basically is like a fun mainstream thing to like, something filled with drama or critical acclaim, right? We're not gonna
Sure.
compare this to like what we're not going to compare this to Edith Finch, okay?
I don't think anyone would expect us to.
Okay.
But I do want to say this real quick. In my opinion, subjectivity is implied unless stated otherwise.
Of course. And kind of getting back to this.
That's what I just want to make that clear, because you're like, oh, it's relative, and it's like let's just lay that groundwork real quick.
Sure. And and that's kind of the great thing about like Mortal Kombat and stuff, is that they know not to take themselves seriously. Like, for example, like if you're playing as Johnny Cage and you kill somebody in the corner, for example, or you defeat somebody in the corner, not necessarily fatality them, in order to... Normally what happens in fighting games, especially Mortal Kombat, like since 9 and stuff, if somebody's cornered, in order to negate the advantage of the attacking player, they actually force them in between rounds to actually like move backward or walk backward, right? So that way there's enough of a gap for the other person at the beginning of the next round to be able to react. You with me so far?
Okay. I'm with you.
Okay, so when Johnny Cage does this, he literally does a little song and dance where he's literally flipping off the person like who died until he gets back to his neutral position. And I'm like, that is ridiculous, man. He's just like, fuck you. And I'm like, oh my God, Johnny Cage. Oh my God, that is hilarious. And I feel like that specific thing, right, is emblematic of what Mortal Kombat is. It's not a game where you take things seriously and think of things as canon, because the Mortal Kombat team will just laugh at you and tell you you're wrong, right? In this particular case, the story of Mortal Kombat 11 is all about time manipulation, which, man, like thinking about that, how many games have we played in the past where time manipulation has been used as a MacGuffin a million different ways, right? We can start with Chrono Trigger. We can and we can start with like Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, and just go like a variety of different ways. Of course, Mortal Kombat's MacGuffin is like, well, there's this girl named Kronika, with a K, by the way, Daniel, with two Ks. Yeah, 2Ks, Kronika, who is apparently the mother of Shinnok or something like that, who was like the main bad guy of the previous games, and how she dislikes Raiden, like the way that Raiden has manipulated time, and it's kind of interesting because they, when these guys write stories, they still somehow manage to honor the previous games in the series, right? So, for example, when Armageddon happened, Mortal Kombat 9 was in response to that. And Mortal Kombat 9 was literally a retread of the events of Mortal Kombat 1 to 3. And it was literally like Raiden seeing, at the end of Armageddon, seeing like that, that they were going to lose to this being. He literally went back in time to try to influence his past self to right the wrong things that happened, right? And, he does this several times during the storyline until at the end of Mortal Kombat 10, he becomes emo and becomes a bad guy. Where literally, like, his lightning is no longer blue, it's red, and kills Liu Kang yet again. So
what?
Yeah. So the funny thing that happens, because time travel and time manipulation happens, Kronika destroys the current Raiden, red-eyed Raiden, completely erases him from history, but not before Raiden from Mortal Kombat 2 and a whole bunch of other fighters from other games in the past come to the present in order to help either Kronika or the new Raiden to battle each other in Mortal Kombat. Think about what I just said. Did any of that make sense? If you said no, that is Mortal Kombat.
Sounds awesome.
It's pretty fucking amazing. And one thing that they do differently in the story mode, and again, this is like a 6 to 7 hour story mode or something like that. You could sit down and just play through the entire thing in one sitting. It is such a fun experience from beginning to end that they actually thought of like some different things to do, like, during the story missions and stuff. So for example, there's a chapter called Fire and Ice where, it's basically no, let's use the other one, which is Shaolin Monks is the name of the chapter, and it's literally Liu Kang and Kung Lao. And throughout
wasn't that a game?
Yes, and you know what else? Fire and Ice is also a name of a canceled follow-up to Mortal Kombat mythologies that would have starred Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Those chapter names were picked on purpose.
Okay.
Yeah.
This very fan servicey.
Exactly. And that's kind of like what I'm trying to get at here. So in the Shaolin Monks chapter, you get to actually pick who you're going to control in each fight. Like one time, like I pick, Liu Kang, the other time I pick Kung Lao, and, it'll actually keep track of who you're using per fight. And it's kind of, this neat thing where it's like, personally, I don't like Jackie Briggs, so I just picked Jax in their chapter. So it allowed me to actually like try out the characters and in such a low, kind of low consequence kind of way that it was actually really enjoyable to play through that game, even not knowing a lot of moves and special moves and stuff. Like it was really fulfilling as an experience. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah. And of course, I talked about like how Johnny Cage, basically flips you off multiple times just, to reset himself in a neutral position when you're in a corner. But Johnny Cage also meets his younger, cockier self. And that's kind of the thing that's crazy, because Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade in the present period actually have a daughter named Cassie Cage. And so,
I know about this. Yeah.
And so literally, like, past Sonya and Johnny Cage come to the present, and of course, like there's this weird shit happening where, there's 2 Kanos, there's 2 Cabals. It's so crazy from like a Mortal Kombat storyline standpoint that you can just resign to nodding your head and saying, well, yeah, of course that'll happen. It's Mortal Kombat, And the ending, Daniel, and I'm not going to spoil the ending is by far also the most Mortal Kombat they could ever think of. It really is. And it actually was genuinely surprising to me, like the direction that they went, because to me, like, there's so many iconic characters in the Mortal Kombat universe that, sometimes, even with Melina missing in 11, we kind of feel slighted a little bit. But there's a lot of ways that they brought back a lot of characters and stuff in really meaningful ways. There's new classics like Aaron Black, who's like the Western guy, and they're just building a brand new legacy on top of it and stuff. And I think that's a brilliant way to kind of think about all this. Is that it's this is a company that really enjoys making games and stuff. If you can somehow suspend your disbelief a little bit and kind of forget a little bit about like all the bad stuff happening in the company, like the little
that's where you're going with that. Like
I'm not going to talk about that.
Okay, if you don't want to, we don't have to.
Yeah, but there's been a couple of articles, right? There's that, and there's also like what Majima said about being a dev at Mortal Kombat, at Mortal Kombat and NetherRealm, being a little bit whatchamacallit, like a little bit immune to a lot of the gore that you're seeing and stuff, which it does take a toll on people, and I'm not gonna excuse them for that, but hey, like we'll see what happens there. Hopefully they treat their employees better next time around, and we'll leave it at that. But Daniel, before we go into our talk about Sony's May State of Play, I want to kind of bring up the fact that we have a merch store now on Backlog Battle. So if you go to shop.spreadshirt.com/mybacklogbattle, I actually added a few more designs there than the last time. So last time we had like a Nier Automata inspired design. We had like a Backlog Battle logo there. We also have like a Persona 5 inspired logo there. But I actually added a shirt for Yakuza fans, which is actually pretty. It's I don't know how you'll feel about this, Daniel, but have you seen those like shirts that say like, it's like a list and it has like ampersand, and it's like kind of like what I said was like Kiryu and Majima and Akiyama and Saejima and Haruka and stuff. It's literally like that text. It's kind of, it's a little bit artsy that way. So I have that. I also have one that's inspired by The Legend of Zelda. That's actually a really cool design. Like a lot of people were actually like really digging it. And and they all say Backlog Battle. It's, we have more colors than what is actually displayed there. And we don't just sell shirts. We also sell like mugs, mouse pads, even to like tumblers and stuff, like, for shaker bottles for like gym. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to check out there. So again, the URL is shop.spreadshirt.com/mybacklogbattle if you want to check that out. And of course, all the people in the chat right now talking with us, they can only be found in the Backlog Battle Royale Discord at bit.ly/BBArmy Discord. I know Majima already changed his name literally as the URL for the show so that Daniel will not forget the URL of the Discord. So Daniel, do you want to say what the URL the Discord is?
Okay, it is bit.ly/BBArmy Discord.
There you go. Thank you, Majima. Thank you, Daniel. And
I can't believe he did that.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. He did that just for you, man. Just for you.
I don't know how to feel about that.
So we're fresh off of watching May's, oh God, I had the order wrong. Sony's May State of Play. Right, Daniel? I said that right.
Yeah. Whatever helps you go to sleep at night.
Thank you. This will definitely help. But so so what do you think? Like, before we actually go into the meat and potatoes of this video, because that's really what this is, right? It's live stream, but it's literally just a prepackaged video. What do you think of this, this whole thing this time around, like this State of Play?
I was pretty not happy with the last State of Play. I went into the last State of Play with very low expectations, and it somehow didn't even meet those. It was pretty bad. This second one is such a huge improvement. It's not even funny. That's not to say it was absolutely mind-blowing and amazing. I wasn't like completely blown away by every single thing they revealed, but I was at least like for most of it engaged. And I was like, oh, okay, that seems like something I'd be interested in, or, oh, that at least looks interesting. Or even if I wasn't interested in it, I could at least go like, hey, I could see why people would be into that.
Mm-hmm. Right, absolutely. And, to be quite honest and stuff, like, I was talking about the State of Play before the stream started, right? And I talked about how Kind of Funny game show, games cast, if you will, game showcase. I forgot, like, what they're actually called. They did a good job of kind of doing something similar back in December, and I kind of hope that, the State of Play could evolve into something like that, as opposed to, like, a string of trailers, right? That being said, I think this was actually very interesting because they bookended the entire show with big games, right? We're not just talking about like, oh, maybe, Ghost of Tsushima or something like that. And it's literally 2 games. And we're going to go right into, this part of the show to talk about like what those games are. And of course, the very first one that they showed is pretty much, the best-selling Capcom franchise of all time, at least the expansion for it, which is Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Now, the interesting part about this is that they did say that it's going to be, coming out in September, which is fan-frickin-tastic, right? But, there's, I know that people are expecting this to be an expansion. Could it be a standalone game? Could it?
I mean, it's possible. I don't think it is.
Okay.
It looks like an expansion, but I mean, I don't know. You would know better than I. My experience with the series is minimal.
Yeah, probably that was a bad question, because I was like, this is, I don't really, play a lot of Monster Hunter games outside of like World, and usually like what they do is literally package a full price game as the new thing, right? Like they don't just kind of update it with packs and stuff like that. And Monster Hunter World was an exception because they kept on adding like new monsters that you would defeat and stuff like that, and that was actually really exciting because for a whole good year, like we got new content and stuff, like new pieces of armor, new challenges and stuff. Like, for example, like one thing that I'm really happy to be able to experience is the crossover between Monster Hunter World and Final Fantasy. Have you heard about that?
Nope.
Yeah, so basically, like, you were able to fight the behemoth from Final Fantasy XIV in Monster Hunter World, and it was actually a very non-traditional fight, because in Final Fantasy XIV, you do need tanks, so you need somebody to get all the rage and the aggro and stuff like that, and you kind of had to play Monster Hunter World in that way. And I thought that was actually rather fascinating that they actually like introduced that style of play in Monster Hunter, even though the game didn't support it. And a lot of people thought it was a pain in the butt, but I think ever since like they've nerfed it, and they did a pretty good job of capturing that Final Fantasy experience in Monster Hunter World. But
did they do vice versa?
Yes, they did. So basically, like in Final Fantasy XIV, you get to fight the Rathalos, and you have a Palico, and you fought it almost exactly like you do in Monster Hunter World. Like there will be a moment where healing using magic would just stop working, and you have to basically like chug those, kind of potions and stuff in order to regain your health or remove poison from yourself, so it's rather fascinating, really cool, like crossover. Like it's both games at their best. But cool. Iceborne though is really exciting, because as you noted while we were actually watching, it's it's in a snowy area, and it's it's sure to have its own share of challenges, right?
I mean, one would hope so. I would have to imagine that there's probably different environmental obstacles that you have to keep in mind with maybe some like slippery ice or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll learn more about that in June, as with most of the other games that are actually featured in, the state of play and stuff. This was actually followed. What's that?
Real quick, I think it'd be cool if like maybe there's one part with like cracked ice, and there's like a monster that comes out from under the ice or something, and you have to fight it that way. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, they had like something like actually like burrowing in the snow and stuff, and then just kind of emerging, and it's really kind of crazy like thinking about that and stuff, and I'm just really elated just watching that. Watching the state of play and stuff. And before, like if people are listening to this and stuff, like we actually released just kind of like a little experiment, if you will, where we were basically like providing live commentary to like and live reactions to state of play, and we've actually posted that by the time you guys listen to this like last week. So if you guys want to see like our genuine reactions and stuff to the entire thing, you could totally check that out on youtube.com/mybacklogbattle. So yeah, crazy stuff, right? Crazy stuff.
Yeah. I think the environment has a lot of potential for some like interesting hazards. Like I said before, like with the ice, or maybe like you can fall through the ice, or I'm just saying like there's a lot of potential for some like unique stuff that they could do.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's kind of funny because like I'm looking at some of the articles right now coming out, and they actually like I am literally reading this monster's name wrong. I'm reading it as Nicaragua, but it's actually called Nargacuga. And I'm like, apparently that somebody identified it as Nargacuga, and he's supposed to be a big deal in Monster Hunter World. So that's really, really amazing. Now, we've been talking, I'm desperately trying to find the name of the game that followed next, which I am so sorry that I don't remember this, but it's a pixel style dungeon crawler. And
very, very similar in aesthetic to 3D Dot Game Heroes.
Right. And, like one of the and the thing is with showing off games of this ilk, right, is you can't really tell what differentiates it from other games in the genre, right? So while I appreciate the aesthetic much as you, I don't know why I should pick this over maybe a highly discounted Diablo 3, other than the art style, right? I mean, it's really interesting to note that the characters, like a lot of the different characters, actually are guests from other games, right? Like Psychonauts, like Raz is in there, Shovel Knight is in there, and a whole bunch of other characters. But that's not a selling point, right? Like, how many games have you personally bought where it's like, well, this character is guesting in this game? That went from like a not buy to a must buy game.
Super Smash Brothers.
Fuck. Okay. You're right.
When they announced Joker, I was like, all right, you got me.
Okay, fine. But other than that,
I can't think of anything else. But I mean, to be fair, that throwing in Joker was a pretty big flex.
Mm-hmm. Right. Dom says, yeah, that's the one exception. And you had to pick it, Daniel. Shame on you. Jesus, always trying to work your way around your own angle and stuff. But speaking of angles, there was an interesting angle in the next trailer when the camera pulled out from these, like heavy military dudes and stuff like that. And you saw this little kind of shimmer on the left side on top of a tree to reveal a new Predator game called Predator Hunting Grounds. And why do I feel like this is going to be a Friday the 13th knockoff kind of game?
It's possible. We didn't see any gameplay. It was literally one of those proof of concept FMV trailers.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing really to like latch onto here. I'm not excited at all. I mean, don't get me wrong, Predator is awesome. The first Predator movie is just a killer film. Love that movie.
Yeah. I don't know how much of it is relevant to today's, younger generation. Like the Predator is, yes, it's terrifying and all that stuff, but let's be honest here, like we're not in the 80s, or the 90s and stuff. So it's like I feel like that brand is unlike, Alien and a whole bunch of other brands that have existed since the 80s and have, persisted throughout the 90s and, of course, the early 2000s. I don't think Predator is actually that big of a brand anymore.
No, not really. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying a Predator game couldn't work, and I'm not saying a Predator game couldn't be cool to release now, or even that wouldn't be successful, but I think we can at least agree it's kind of an odd choice.
Yeah. Yes. Very odd choice.
I mean, they would have to like really bust out the big guns and be like, hey, we're not playing. They need to do something like an Arkham Asylum for people to turn around and be like, whoa, what the heck was that? Because that's what happened, right? Like when Arkham Asylum came out, everyone turned their heads and was like, whoa, where did this come from? This is like amazing Batman game, like out of nowhere. Like if you would have said before that game, like, oh, hey, there's going to be this amazing Batman game coming out, and people would be like, yeah, sure, whatever, buddy.
Right. Dom actually points out something rather interesting. It doesn't help that the last Predator movie tanked. And if you remember, there was a reboot of Predator recently released.
Oh, yeah, that everyone forgot about, including me, until you brought it up just now.
Jeez. So yeah, my guess is this going to be kind of similar to Evolve. If you remember that game, it was an asymmetric multiplayer shooter from about 2 or 3 years ago, where it's from the guys who made the original Left 4 Dead, and it was like a 1 versus 4 people kind of game, and like that's always kind of tough, like to make asymmetrical games like that. Quite personally, the only asymmetric game that I feel has succeeded and has weathered time itself is Dead by Daylight. And by the way, this was not in the Sony State of Play, but they actually unveiled their newest killer today in Dead by Daylight, which is Ghostface from the Scream movies in the 90s. You want to talk about a throwback, Daniel? That makes me feel freaking old, man.
Yep. I totally feel you there.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, guys, wow. So moving away from that was Medieval, and you have a lot to say about this, right?
So I grew up playing Medieval as a kid. I actually, do you remember those Pizza Hut demo discs?
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's how I first played Medieval.
Wow.
So I remember just like being a kid playing that demo disc over and over again until eventually getting the full game. And I never got a chance to beat it because that game's actually pretty difficult. But I just remember really loving that game and really enjoying the Tim Burton atmosphere and weird sense of humor and the fun combat. At the time for me, it was fun combat.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually I wouldn't go as far as say like excited, but I am like, oh, hey, I'll pick this up.
Yeah.
Because I really have a lot of nostalgia for that game. I really liked it. And I do feel that tinge of like, I never did beat it. This could be my chance to finally finish it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to the remake for that. And I'm also really like hoping that similar to the Spyro collection, that they add just some, quality of life improvements, most notably the camera, because Spyro in particular didn't really need that many like quality of life improvements. Like that game was mostly just like, hey, it looks and runs better,
Mm-hmm.
And now you have control of the camera, and that was pretty much it, because that game was like pretty well designed. I think Medieval will probably they probably will have to like whip out the elbow grease and like, oil the gears a little more, if you get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now,
Okay.
that game hasn't aged quite as well. But as long as they like, they just smooth out the rough edges, it should be like a really solid game, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of our people in the community actually posted something, but we will save that for the appropriate time, I think. So the next game, I mean, I don't want to kind of brush past like Medieval, but I don't have any sort of inclination or any sort of affiliation with the game. I do have it on my Vita with, when they remade it, quote unquote, but that's where it stopped, right? And I think it was the Vita. Am I remembering correctly? Or was it the PSP?
PSP.
Okay, yeah. So I do have that on PSP, but never really, played it past the first few levels. So anyways, so moving on, we have Away, and this was crazy because it looked like you were like a squirrel, because like they were doing squirrely things, and they were like on the backs of like deer and platforming and stuff. Again, this is one of those like trailers that really kind of piques your interest, but at the same time, it doesn't really answer a lot of questions. So it's like there is a specific.
What is this?
Yeah. It's like there's a specific art to a trailer, right? And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong here, Daniel, but most independent games, and when they make their trailers, they make it so esoteric and up their own butts as possible, so that way you could be interested, and then 5 minutes later after you watch it, you're like, what the hell did I just see? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's funny how they showed so much yet conveyed so little.
Yeah.
It's so basically we're playing as an animal, and I guess there's going to be combat and platforming, and that's really all I got from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's supposed to be an emotional journey of sorts, I suppose. I don't know. Maybe that's kind of how it felt with like the music. It's hard to say. Like, I don't know what this game wants me to feel.
I mean, okay, so one
know.
thing that I got was that there is a sense of scale, right? It's a really good sense of scale, which
Yes.
I think we can agree with that. There was fire, I think, as well, which is kind of weird. There's, of course, like you said, battles, but outside of that, all right, well, that's kind of cool. It's the same kind of reaction that I had when I was when I was being sold that, that game with Yarny and stuff, like the EA game, I'm just kind of like, all right, well, this is really cool, but how are you differentiating yourself from other platformers out there? And the answer, finally, like after playing it, was that not so much. It's a puzzle platformer, and that's where it begins and that's where it ends. And that's something that was never conveyed in the trailer, right? So I don't know. Like, it's a great idea, great concept. Could be okay with just moving on, right?
I mean, we need more information, honestly. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say.
Yeah, it's like an underwhelming, overwhelming trailer. If it can be both. Okay, so let's move right along. So Days of Play. I don't know what they were saying here, except, hey, here's a new PlayStation.
Yeah, here's a new PS4. Just because, I guess. It's a gray PS4.
Nice. Okay.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah, moving on. The next one, though, was presented with a big question mark. But if you were on Twitter and you follow, the people at Square Enix, who were freaking just can't keep it in their pants, Daniel. They literally couldn't keep it in their pants. They started tweeting a lot of classic stuff about Final Fantasy VII, right? And of course, lo and behold, Final Fantasy VII happened. I was, if you watch the video and stuff of my reactions and Daniel's reactions, we were just like, whoa, this is really looking good. Graphically and stuff, they actually showed battles. They showed, the character models up close. They showed Sephiroth, because why not? It's it looked really freaking good. And they, of course, they teased us and said, hey, there's more coming in June. And I'm like, oh my God, that is crazy. Crazy.
No, yeah, it I wouldn't say it was what made State of Play good, because even if we didn't get this, I would have said that it was decent. But this elevated the State of Play and made it okay, this was pretty freaking good.
Yeah, this is pretty good.
I was very shocked. I did not expect to see it. I mean, Final Fantasy VII Remake has gone dark for so long. It's just ever since they announced it, they just shut up about it, and they haven't shown us much, and it's been so aggravating. It's like, oh my God, just give it to us already, or at least show us something. Yeah. So I'm glad that they finally did, and it looks really good. I was worried that when they first showed it, that they didn't really have the gameplay finalized, and what they were showing was a lot of smoke and mirrors. This looks like, okay, they actually have an idea what the gameplay is going to be like. They actually, have an outline of sorts of okay, this is what the combat is going to be like, and hopefully they can flesh it out, and it'll be a fun combat system, similar to Kingdom Hearts or something.
Yeah, I mean, at the very bare minimum, right? We're hoping it would be at least like Kingdom Hearts. And quite honestly, this isn't the first time that we have seen Final Fantasy VII in real time, right? Combat-wise. Crisis Core technically is kind of like that. I mean, Tabata worked on that game. And of course, Kingdom Hearts is a thing that they could use as a model for this. In fact, the very first trailer they released, the menu looked a bit similar to Kingdom Hearts in terms of options. So, I mean, I think this is a point where they could be all right, well, we showed you the gameplay before, but we're really going to show you a lot more now, because now we actually have made a lot more, than what we've shown and stuff before. So, really exciting. I mean, it's going to be a great game, I hope. But either way, there's a lot of excitement in the air, for it. And June. They said June. We're going to hear a lot more of it.
We're going to hear more in June. That doesn't mean it's going to release in June. We're just going to hear more in June, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever more is.
Whatever that means and stuff. So I want to do something different. And before anything else, I kind of, especially for the people who are watching this on YouTube, I actually want, each of us to recommend a video of ours, because I understand that, obviously you're a YouTuber yourself, just like me. So I want people to, to check out like one of your YouTube videos and stuff. So can you tell me one that you'd like to recommend?
Well, I think an obvious one would probably be my Shiro versus Shiro video. So one of the people in the chat, actually, my good friend Dom Hawk, participated in that video as a voice actor.
Great.
So it's to give a quick rundown as to what the video is about. It is me basically comparing the anime's interpretation of the character versus the source material, and how it kind of differs, and how the source material it displays a lot of depth for the character, and a lot of the nuance is lost in the anime adaptation. A lot of that has to do with the fact that the I want to say like 70, that's maybe lowballing it actually, like 80 or 90% of the visual novel, you are literally stuck in Shiro's head.
Mm-hmm.
So you are constantly getting his inner monologues. You're constantly getting his interpretation of things. You're constantly seeing things from his perspective. So even if you may not necessarily 100% agree with Shiro, you always understand him. And taking that out in the anime is understandable, right? Like it wouldn't make sense for the anime to like stop. We have to explain his thoughts. It would kill the pacing. It works fine in like a visual novel format because it's like closer to a book. And in books you can get away with that. But in a visual medium, there's no way. Like you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But the result is a character that he's basically lost like a significant amount of what makes the character work.
Mm-hmm.
And you have an anime adaptation that has this portrayal of this character that a lot of people ended up not liking because they didn't understand him. And that's what I attempt to convey in the video.
Cool. And the only thing that I'm going to recommend is basically like the latest Persona 5 Royal video that I posted. It's got a ton more info due to, like the leak in Famitsu and stuff. Probably a lot more than that Morgana teaser video that they released and stuff. So go check it out. So yeah. Anyways, until next time, we'll see you guys later. Happy gaming, y'all. See ya.